Make your day richer than it was before. Got some good times knocking upon your front door.
Well, hello everyone. Happy Friday. I'm feeling very nostalgic today because today, in 2011, I filmed my first talk show ever. Richard Karlinski's Primetime Special was a show I did for Milwaukee Public Television back in 2011, and we filmed the episode today. And I had this, the director made this little graphic for me, a little canvas. We did a little promo shoot. It was so fun. I was the first person to do a live studio audience for Milwaukee Public Television. It ended up winning an award. It was based off one of their production classes, and they had so much fun doing the show that they asked me back to do a live show later. It was so fun. So 2011. So I had two guests, Lisa. Thank you. Who actually Lisa does when we go to commercial at the end of the show, the graphics for the audience clapping. My friend Lisa did that as well. And then Leslie Kagan were the guests. So fun. And that kicked it off, I suppose. It took me out of a bedroom, pretending and talking to myself, to talking to real people. And we haven't stopped since. Speaking of not stopping, let's do a view count of this show here, Make Your Day Richer. We started 2025 with 100,000 views. And let's see where we're at, shall we? Amazing. 240,038. I love all of you. So I like exact numbers. And so far, before the show, there were 240,038 views and downloads of the show. Thank you, everyone who watches, who shares, who contributes, who likes, who does all the things. Now's a good time to do any of those things. Press the love button, press the share button, and let's start the show, shall we? Have you ever felt like you were ready for a fresh start in love, in your career, in your whole life? My first guest understands that feeling deeply. After nearly 20 years in corporate America and navigating life's ups and downs, she created a business dedicated to helping women fall in love and make more money. She's here to share her wisdom and guide us towards greater alignment and empowerment. So please welcome, she's also hosting a really good podcast, Shaunna Lee. Please welcome Shaunna Lee.
Hi, thank you for such a great intro. I love it.
Well, thanks for being here. What did you want to be when you were a kid, when you grew up?
Gosh, well, listen, when I was growing up, I really thought there were only like three things you could be, especially as a woman. I thought you could be a teacher, maybe I could be a doctor, and maybe I could go be a businesswoman, quote unquote businesswoman. I had no idea what that meant. So I think I kind of thought, well, I'll do one of those things. And it's funny because I ended up kind of doing all three of those. Not that I'm a doctor by any means, but as a mom, I often play nurse. So it kind of ties in. I feel like I have like a mini medical degree after having four children. Then I have managed to have an element of teaching in every single role I've ever done, but I ended up in the business world. So I was a marketing major at the University of Texas and then went to work for this little computer company you might have heard of called Dell Computers.
It was the first computer I ever bought going to college.
Yeah. I, for a long time, would only own a Dell computer. Anyway, so I spent about 20 years in technology at that point, in the business world. Never really quite doing marketing, which was very interesting. But I did a lot of consulting, and that's where the teaching element came in, as I was really teaching people how to buy a computer, how to use a computer, how to, move business online back in, the early 2000s when that business was going. And then when I moved into SaaS companies, software as a service, really was around kind of how do I utilize this software? So I often was teaching in every single role that I've ever had. And then wouldn't you know it, corporate America kind of chewed me up and spit me out. And I ended up in this little entrepreneur journey that I've been on, and having a blast, I've got to tell you, because I'm again teaching. I'm teaching women how to go to big, bold, crazy things. And it started with writing my book, which is called So You're Divorced, So What? And it is really a guide on how to put your life back together and to truly thrive despite the fact that you might be divorced.
I know you're now teaching people how to be bold. When did you make that choice to be bold?
I don't know that it was ever a choice. I just kind of always found myself in a room where I was doing this thing that felt good, normal, kind of fun. And people would look at me like I was crazy. It was I was constantly kind of going against the norm. So it started as a teenager in high school, as a high school senior, getting pregnant and deciding to become a mother at a very young age. And then I was getting married before any of my friends were getting married. And, it was just kind of one thing led to another. And I was always at this kind of leading edge of doing something against the grain. As much as I tried to kind of follow the recipe we were given, I was always outside of the lines a little bit and kind of doing crazy things, whether it was just getting a divorce, which seemed really crazy, or starting a business or writing a book or starting a podcast. I just kind of have learned to lean into what is fun and exciting and do more of that.
That's interesting because your book, So You're Divorced, So What? What you would think it would not be a fun topic to write about.
Yeah.
Like you just said,
Yeah.
I lean into everything that sounds fun. But tell everybody, I guess we can guess where that story comes from, but what brought you to write a book?
Well, really, it was when I started this whole awakening journey that I've been on and kind of tapping into my higher self, listening to God, but it was all in meditation. So when I learned to quiet my mind, I'm self-diagnosed ADD, but all of my children have ADD, and I'm pretty sure it comes from me. My mind goes blah, 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 nonstop. And so really learning to calm the chaos in my mind was what meditation did for me initially. And then the more I spent time in meditation, the more I was hearing kind of guidance and ideas and nudges. And the nudges became stronger and stronger. And one day, I kid you not, it was write the damn book was what I heard. And I was like Ross Geller on Friends, facing my third divorce. And I was going to do everything in my power to not be divorced a third time. Lo and behold, I was divorced a third time. And so when I heard the guidance to write a book, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I am not writing a book about divorce. I am not going to be this poster child for everyone should get divorced. That was really my biggest fear in this book, is that people would think that I was a proponent of divorce and that I was going to go, convince everybody to get divorced. It's the worst thing you could possibly go through. It is not on my recommend list for anyone.
I've done it once. I hope to not do it again.
Never again. Yeah, it's just, it's horrible. It is also an opportunity to redefine ourselves. And it is an opportunity to kind of start new. And so that's when it really was the beginning of this whole start again journey that I've been on and building a business around. It doesn't matter what has happened in your life or where you're coming from. You get the opportunity to go do big, bold, crazy, fun things, and you get to decide what that is. And so writing the book really was kind of my little tiny baby step into, okay, I can talk to people about the fact that I've been divorced 3 times and not be completely embarrassed by that. And it really was just the catalyst for everything else I've done since then.
For you, how long was that span of getting divorced into, I'm going to write about this and I'm going to be okay with that?
It was, gosh, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever done the math on that. I was probably 4 or 5 years into the process of being fully single mom, living solo. I was swearing off men. I was not going to date again. I was really building a life that I loved that did not contain a man. And this was new territory for me. And so the idea that I could really kind of help other women do the same was really kind of crazy in the beginning.
Yeah, tell everybody about what they can expect from the book.
So it really is a guide to putting your life back together. So what most people, and it's funny, it's a pink book, and I've written it for women, and it is what I say is the prettiest divorce book you'll ever read. But I have had so many men read this book. So it really is universal in terms of the guidance that's in the book. It is a guide to heal first, to kind of retreat and heal your heart, do the work, because there's work to be done to kind of, I call them relationship assessments. You kind of have to sit with, what did I do well? What did I not do well? Like, what was my part? And really own your part of it. Don't take responsibility for him or her, but own what was yours so that you can be better and do better moving forward. The goal is that you prepare yourself and you learn the lessons that came from that relationship so that you can have a better one in the future. And so it really is kind of the 1, 2, 3 steps to heal, rebuild. And then one of my favorite chapters is the dream big chapter, because what I see a lot of people do after divorce is have really tiny goals for themselves. Like, I just want to be able to, earn enough money to pay for me and my kids. Going from 2 salaries to 1 salary is significant for most people, if not all. And so being able to kind of maintain your lifestyle with 1 salary is a big thing. However, so much more you can do beyond just going to work and providing for your children and living day to day, that really is the stretch that I'm kind of guiding people to. What is your dream big moment? Do you want to live where you have been living this whole time, or do you want to move? Do you want to live in a different country? And just really kind of stretching people's expectations for what their future can hold.
Wow. You obviously wrote it for, like you said, a specific group of people, women going through divorce. And then when you realize that the audience is outside of that, how does that feel to know that you are expanding that audience into the men who are getting divorced as well?
Well, initially it made me think maybe I should have used a different color for the cover. But I think mostly it made me feel really great that it was such a wide-reaching, helpful tool. That's really what I wanted it for. I wanted to help people put your life back together and go do amazing things. Like, your life is not over just because you're divorced. It feels like it in the moment, but it's not. And it's just the beginning of what your next chapter gets to be. And so the fact that it is reaching more than just women, I think, is incredible. And that's
Are you going to be working on another book at all?
I am, totally. I have multiple books in my back pocket here. I had one that I was starting about dating after divorce, which I will eventually write. But I was in a relationship, and then the relationship ended, and so I put a pause on the dating conversation. But there's another one that I probably will write next, and it really is tying into the work I'm doing in this community I've put together, and really being the guide to, it's essentially igniting your brilliance. What is your skill? What is your gift to the world? How do we uncover what that is? How do you make some money sharing it with the world? And how do you leave your impact by sharing your gift? And so that will be the book once I get down to writing it.
Well, I hope you come back for that whenever that's ready.
I will. I would love to. Yes.
Tell everybody about your podcast and what you love about podcasting, and how that's also a great way to connect with people and really teach people.
Yeah. So the podcast has gone through some iterations in the 3+ years that I've been podcasting. It has quickly become one of my favorite babies. So I have 4 children, and the podcast quickly felt like a 5th. It has been so amazing. One, to prove to myself once again that I can do hard things. I can learn new skills. Podcasting required that I learn all sorts of new technology and how to edit audio and video, which I had zero desire to learn how to do. But I can do hard things. And so I was able to venture forth and do it. But the real treat for me was getting to meet new people and discover how fun it was just to hit record on a conversation and then share it with whoever wanted to listen. It was like, wait, what? I can do this super fun thing. I used to batch record, and so I would record, all day on Wednesday. And I quickly learned that you need some boundaries and limitations, and that 4 or more interviews in a day was really difficult. So there's been a lot of learnings that came from that. But there were days that I would go into my 3 recordings and I would think, oh gosh, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this day. And I kid you not, after every single interview, I would be energized and so excited. And I wanted to go tell everybody, I just met this most incredible person and I can't wait for everybody to hear this interview. It was an amazing conversation. And it was just so much fun that I think that surprised me the most, is how much fun the podcasting experience is. And it's a whole new community of people thinking about all sorts of crazy things. And I will say, it's the one place where I really can just say whatever the heck I want to say, because it's my show and I make the rules. And that was a new sense of freedom that I really enjoyed.
Tell everybody about the Align workshop and how they can connect with you on that.
So I have founded the Flow Alignment Method, and it essentially is, how do you find your alignment? What I discovered was it's different for everybody. So elements of who we each are, this soul walking around having this human experience, but we all have a body, mind, and spirit. And those 3 aspects of us, when they're out of balance, is when people are acting wacky. And so that's when things feel hard and mind is chaotic and things feel, like you're locked or stuck. And so being able to find what works for you to get in alignment is what allows you to be in the creative flow. So if you are doing anything that is a creative venture, we know what it's like to be in flow and when we're not. Like sitting down to write when you're not in creative flow is like impossible. You're just staring at this blank page. And so the Flow Alignment Method really walks people through, how do you figure out what your thing is, so that you can very quickly get into alignment, so that you can be in creative flow and you can go do that fun creative thing that you want to do much faster.
That's all on your website as well, I'm assuming.
It is. The best place to find the Flow Alignment Method is, it's one of the benefits you get from being in the community called Empowered Endeavors. And this is the community of women that I have kind of cultivated over the years. And it really was partially from the podcasting experience. I was meeting all these really incredible women, and I kept having the sense of like, they all need to know each other. And so being able to create this community where everyone can come together, and it's one of 2 types of women that come to this space, and they both lean on the other and need the other. So what I've discovered is there are women in corporate, where I spent a long, long time, who are craving this sense of creativity or connectedness that they're not quite sure how to find. Many people call it like, what's my purpose? But it really is just a connection that they are missing. And then there are all these amazing, highly intuitive, creative, spiritual women who sometimes are lacking a little bit of the business structure and strategy. And so being able to kind of fill that community with both people so they can lean on each other and rely on one another has been the most incredible thing. But one of the benefits you get from being in the community is access to the Flow Alignment Method. So that's in Empowered Endeavors.
What do you love most about your life right now?
Oh, that is an excellent question. I think what I love most, no, I don't think I know, is this sense of freedom and flexibility that I have now that I only dreamed of. It's like one of those moments where you realize I have what I used to pray for. So I was, commuting to and from corporate back in the day. All I wanted was to be able to pick up my kids from school, or have the flexibility to pop in to have lunch with them if that's what they needed, or to be on a field trip without having to like maneuver meetings around. And the amount of flexibility that I have over my schedule now is amazing. And then I have the freedom on most days to just do whatever the heck I feel called to do. And that is pretty incredible. Pretty incredible.
I love that answer. I love it. So you're divorced. So what is Shaunna's book? Go get it. Listen to the podcast.
Yes.
Join her network. Do all the things. Connect with her at ShaunnaLee.com. Shaunna, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure. It was so nice to meet you.
You know what would be better than watching this commercial? Watching your commercial. Scan the QR code or visit makeyourdayricher.com/advertising to start promoting today.
All righty, everybody. Let's get all of this situated. There's so much that happens. Now that winter is situated, we can move on. My next guest is doing it all. He's a podcasting powerhouse. He's a documentary filmmaker. He's a movie producer. He's also launched Peaceful Sea Productions, which is a streaming network for independent creators. He's a true force of nature in the media world, and I'm excited to have him here. So please welcome Jake Green. Hello.
Hey, Rich, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
That was quite an intro as well. Yeah. Shaunna's was awesome. That mine was even better. Thank you.
You can take it. I'll send it to you. I know you're not feeling great, so I don't want to take up a ton of your time. But I mean, really, where do you want to start? Like, you're doing so much for not only the entertainment world, but like people in it. You're giving people a space, which I always love, because it can also feel crowded here in the podcasting world, and it's hard to sometimes find where you belong, and you're providing that with your production company.
Yeah, it definitely does feel crowded a lot of times, but I think like the best thing about streaming and the best thing about like the internet and people being allowed to put whatever they want out there is you can find your specific audience. I think you're like, yeah, it's you might not have an audience of millions and millions of people all around the world, but if you find, the audience for your show that is small but
Mighty,
rabid, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to find a great community, and you're going to find a way to make money off that. And I think it's opened up a ton of opportunities for people who would never ever have gotten those in the past.
Yeah. Can you tell everybody about Peaceful Sea Productions? I want to know where the name came from, because I love it. And who it's for, and who should be joining it, and who should be watching.
Yeah. So I started Peaceful Sea Productions. It came from a YouTube channel that I had started with my brother called Back to the Peaceful Sea. And we traveled around the world teaching people how to do it with no money. With very little money, not no money, but very little. And so we went to almost 40 countries over a few years and showed people like it is for us growing up, traveling seemed like not doable at all, super expensive, kind of scary. And so we just wanted to show folks like us that, it's not that scary and it's not that expensive if you do it the correct way. So we have, I don't know, 100 and something videos on traveling cheaply all across the world. And the Peaceful Sea, Back to the Peaceful Sea kind of came from an homage to when Magellan went around the globe. He named it the Peaceful Sea, basically, the Pacific Ocean. And so it was kind of a journey to go from the Pacific Ocean on one side all the way to the Pacific Ocean on the other side. And so that's kind of what it was.
What got you into all of this? Like, did you fall in love with a certain filmmaker? Like, what was your first love in this type of media?
I didn't know growing up that you could be a filmmaker. Like I grew up in a very traditional house in Dallas, Texas, and didn't know movies were even an option. So it wasn't until I quit college twice and then 5 years later learned, I actually like made movies with my brother growing up. Like we made some of the stupidest movies you'll ever watch, but we made them and it was great. And maybe I'd like to try that. And so that's kind of where it sprang from, was somebody just left a pamphlet for a film school on a table, and I saw it and I was like, just like a bunch of things just went off in my head that day. And now 16 years later, here I am. So
what were the what were you studying the 2 times you quit college?
Architecture, both times. Yeah. It just wasn't for me. I never did well at school. I don't do super well with authority. And which is kind of where Peaceful Sea Network comes in. I uh, I never was really political, but I always wanted freedom and liberty and like the ability to make my own decisions and not have them made for me. And so, Peaceful Sea Network is kind of geared towards that, towards like self-reliance, independence. Don't let other people um, control the things you do and define whether or not you're happy and you're successful. And so
Mm.
that's kind of what Peaceful Sea Network is all about.
What does it feel like to be able to do what you know you should be doing?
um, a lot of times I don't feel like at all like that's the case. Because I get so bogged down in the minutia. I'm always
Yeah.
editing, I'm always behind a computer, and if I'm not behind a computer, I'm doing some other type of work, and it doesn't always feel that way. But then when I step back and actually look at the website, look at all the people that are involved, I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty great.
Yeah, I
Um,
did something. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, and that's pretty important. My wife is really good at that, to just like step back and be like, okay, look what we've accomplished, like celebrate the
Mhm.
wins. And I don't do a good job at that. And yeah, she helps me with that.
That brings up a good question because I do this show every single day. So it's like you're done and you had a great show, and like Shaunna said, I run and I tell everybody, oh my god, I talked to this person, it was so fun,
Yeah.
and then you move on to the next thing, and you don't get to really have time. You don't think you have time to like celebrate all of those big amazing things that happen throughout this. How do you take the time to like did you take the time to celebrate that you created a network? Did you do those things? And if you did, what did you do to celebrate?
So far, I've taken the time to celebrate specific shows or movies that have come out and done well. Me and my wife like to travel, so we go on little trips together. And that I love to travel. That's why the whole production company and network was started. So uh, that's kind of how we do it. Whether it's just a cabin in the woods, like 3 hours north of where we live, or one of our favorite spots is Iceland. We've gone there multiple times for a week, 2 weeks, and yeah, we always end up making a travel video out of it, so it's not like we're not working a little bit while we're there. But
Yeah,
that's kind of how I tend to celebrate is just hanging out with her and the rest of my family.
I love that because then it keeps you grounded too, and it keeps you like, oh, this is why I'm doing it. This is what really matters because you can get so overwhelmed by everything and making sure everything's good and perfect and realizing what's actually important.
Heck yeah.
What's your advice for people who want to get into filmmaking, podcasting?
Mm.
What would you say? Or I mean, those are two very different things, so we can touch on each of
Yeah,
them.
so I guess for filmmaking, you can it is definitely not like it was 20 years ago, where you have to get permission and get a ton of funding from somebody in order to make a movie. um, there are incredible people on YouTube, Rumble, any of the streaming platforms that will teach you the very basics of cinematography, of writing, of blocking, of acting, of directing, and who are extremely talented, and like will film an entire feature film on an iPhone. You don't
Yeah.
need a red camera, you don't need a Phantom, like you don't need these $150,000 rigs in order to make something incredible. And so I think learning depending on what you want to do in the film industry, learning that like inside and out and focusing on that will get you much further on a film set. For me, I am terrible at that, which is why I never got far on a film set, which is why I started making my own films. I like to do a whole bunch of things, and I don't like to specialize in just one. And so it's a much more difficult journey, but I find it far more fun, and I just like interacting with all the different kinds of things you do on a film set, except acting. I never want to act. I don't want to be in
Oh,
front of a screen in
interesting.
that way. My wife is an actress. She she does that for our family and not me.
You got to break up the responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, filmmaking, like sometimes you do need other people. It's a collaborative art form. So you have to talk to other folks. You have to figure out exactly what you want to do and what kind of story you want to tell. As far as podcasting, start small. Look, I think far too many people try to have the broadest audience possible. I think there are, for instance, the most watched show on our network is called The Cascade Effect. It is about a county in the middle of nowhere, Montana, and it's about holding law enforcement accountable, basically. And the county has a total of like what was it, like 85,000 people in the entire county, and I'd say at this point, about half of those people watch the show,
Wow.
according to our data. And so, like, I think going too broad is a mistake. Maybe not a mistake, but it's far more challenging to get a ton of eyes on something very quickly. Like, it takes a very long time to do that.
Mhm.
I've been doing a show called Liberty Libations for 3 years, and we're just now picking up steam where we actually have a decent amount of people watching, where we can actually, make somewhat of a living off of it. And if you know your audience and know exactly who this show or podcast or whatever is for, you'll be far more likely to succeed, and figure out how to market to those people, which is one of the more difficult parts.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about the streaming platforms. Obviously, like everybody knows the big ones, right? Netflix and all of those things. And there are places like yours where people can put their things on. What are some of the benefits about being on a streaming platform like yours as opposed to just putting it out there on your own, putting it out on YouTube? Like, can you talk about that? Like how that benefits the people that you're
Yeah,
working
for
with?
sure. Absolutely. Well, one, we're not exclusive, so no one signs an exclusivity contract or anything like that. So if you want to continue to put your show out on other platforms, you are more than welcome. So you can earn your own income stream while also earning a little bit through Peaceful Sea Network. And one of the great things is when you combine a whole bunch of different shows that have completely different topics, but are generally on the same theme of, for us, it's self-reliance or independence, or just somewhere in that sphere. It's far easier to get advertisers and sponsors because you find those advertisers and sponsors that are in line with your core beliefs as a network. And so you're going to get the benefit of getting advertisers on your show that you probably would not have gotten, at least for a while. And so, like, as soon as you join the network, you get access to all of those, and the advertisers get more views on their products and their whatever they're selling. So that's one of the big benefits. Yeah.
What are you working on now? What's coming up? I know you've got some big changes in your life, but what about what work related? What's happening and what's coming up?
So my wife and I just relaunched a podcast called On the Drive Home, where we review movies on the drive home from the theater. We're doing it back in 2019, and then 2020, all the theaters shut down, and we had to shut down basically. And we tried a few from the couch. It was terrible. It had no energy. It was really bad. And we just relaunched that. We're in talks to make a narrative film, like a traditional movie, about a war veteran who had some pretty traumatic things happen to him while he was over there, and he's now an insane musician and singer. And so we're going to try to basically agreed to help let us adapt his life story to a movie. And so we're going to pitch that to a few of the bigger production companies like Angel Studios and places like that, where you can actually get a foot in the door as a normal person. So that's the biggest one. And then, yeah, Cascade Effect, like I said, that's our biggest show. And we're trying to basically get justice for a guy who was killed by the police in a very unlawful, like the cop broke many laws and many rules, and a man ended up dead. So the biggest thing that we're working on right now is the first season of the Cascade Effect.
And where is the best way that people can connect with you and see everything that you're doing?
Yeah, go to peacefulsea.network, www.peacefulsea.network, and all the shows, all the movies are on there. We're launching a brand new show. We're launching, I think, 4 new shows this year.
Wow.
One is a big stunt guy in the film industry. He launched a podcast interviewing some other huge stunt people. It's called Philosophical Fall Guy. So that'll come out in March. And then we've got 2 about building off grid. One's a podcast, one's a documentary series. And then we've got a couple more that don't have names yet, but they're coming.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you love most about your life right now?
Oh, I love being in Montana. That's where we're moving to. We're physically building our own house in the middle of nowhere. And man, just standing on a mountain in the middle of nowhere, not a single other human is within 2 miles of you. You just hear the wind and the animals. And that's my favorite thing to do, is just sit in a chair with a cup of coffee or a whiskey and enjoy that.
Depending on the time of day, I suppose. Or maybe not.
Yeah, definitely depending on the time of year as well.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much for being here, for jumping on and chatting and creating a space for people. I'm so appreciative of that.
Heck yeah, man. And I appreciate your show. I told you before, I watched a few episodes and I love it. I love the positivity, and interviewing people is a difficult skill, and it's one you got to learn. And a lot of people are not good at it, but you are fantastic at it. So I appreciate it.
Well, thanks. Come back anytime. Anytime you want to talk about how great I am, come back.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, that's our show. Have a great weekend. Go make your day richer. Go make somebody else's day richer. You've made mine by watching the show, and I love you for it. It's also a really good time to just share the show since you're still here. All right. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Bye-bye.